Welcome to the Enterprise Builders Podcast, powered by P3, where we feature top industry leaders discussing what it takes to build a profitable company and stay on top. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aaron Stahl. I'm the CEO and founder of P3 Cost Analysts, and I've got Kirk Williamson with us today. He's one of our newer franchisees, but he's had a lot of success starting out. He's kind of a whale hunter, if you will. He's gotten some good clients off the bat. But excited to visit with Kirk today, hear a little bit more about him professionally and personally as we continue our little franchisee mini series here. So with that being said, Kirk, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Good deal. All right. Well, first, I just want to start with a couple of personal questions, let everybody learn a little bit more about who Kirk is and how he ticks. And then we can kind of really dive into the business stuff, how you got into this business, et cetera. So just, for starters, just want to hear where you're from, what was it like growing up, a little bit more, just a background about you personally.
I was born in Macomb, Mississippi. It's a small Southwest Mississippi town, and basically had a great childhood. And my parents were great, and I have no complaints about any of that part of my life. Grew up, I went off to college, and after college, I actually lived on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi for a year. Then I moved to New Orleans. Gosh, I think about the end of this year to be 44 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So basically I've been in Louisiana most of my life, and all my children were born here. So it's been a great place to be for us. Very
cool. Yeah. The Southern accent is coming through loud and clear. I grew up in Arkansas, and I guess I've got maybe a slight Southern accent, for some of my friends from the Northeast. But I always am like, you know what? When you get just a couple hundred miles further south, it's a lot more pronounced, and it's very cool. So what kind of hobbies or stuff are you into, or I don't know, just tell us a little bit more about what you enjoy doing.
Actually, I kind of just work and go see grandchildren is about all I do now. I used to play golf, but since I broke my neck playing golf, I don't play golf anymore. I could, but I hadn't really picked the club up since that accident occurred. So I try to stay busy finding new clients to build my business.
Sure. Well, I'd say
quite a ways to go, but I'm working it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say being a grandparent is certainly a full-time job and hobby.
It's great. They live in Tennessee, so they don't live that close, but we're going up there next week, as a matter of fact. My wife tries to go as much as she can.
Very cool. Cool. Well, good deal. Well, let's kind of dive in a little bit more business stuff. So I'd like to just hear, walk me through your career up until you got into P3. I'd just like to hear a little more about your background.
I worked after college. I worked for a department store. I worked for a bank. My dad and brother are bankers, so I thought I'd be a banker. And then I decided that wasn't my gig. And actually, I was in oil and gas for about 4 years, and then I went into the investment industry. Back in those days, we were called stockbrokers. Now they're called financial analysts. But I did that for almost 38 years. And then that industry, as many industries have, changed a lot. So I just started looking around for another situation, even at this stage of life. And I looked at a couple of franchises, different kinds of franchises that kind of would fit with what I had done all those years. But I just couldn't quite pull the trigger for some reason. That was in the fall of 19. And I came really close in early December of 19 of pulling the trigger with a couple of these other franchises. And thank goodness I didn't, because I think I would have died on the vine with COVID that came up a few months after that. But I just wasn't sure. And then I got a call from Mark Sherman. And he convinced me I should look at this industry, and I think it was a good choice. I think that everybody's looking to try to save money, even though it's kind of interesting that a lot of people just haven't heard of what it is that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a little skeptical. They kind of look at you like, okay, what are you trying to pull over on?
Sure.
Once they understand and get comfortable with it and actually pull the trigger, I think they're happy that they did it. And I think it's just a great way at this stage in my life to try to build something that I can do for years to come. Even though I'm not a young guy, my mom's 96, so I figure I got a little running room here. Hopefully I can work for a long time.
You got lots of runway there, Kirk.
Yeah. Huh?
You got lots of runway. Lots of runway.
Yeah, I know. I think I do too. So it was really the conversation with Mark that kind of convinced me to look at it. And I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you sharing that. I think you bring up a good point. That a lot of people don't really realize when looking at our industry is like clients, they don't really think they need our service, right? So you do have to educate them on so they don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, we're spending on my uniform expenses or my Xerox guys, ripping my off, right? They've got, they're working on top line revenue or personnel stuff. So it's definitely something we have to educate them on. And then, when you're looking at, the options that we have as far as shared savings and no upfront cost, it can definitly reek of too good to be true, right? So that's the hurdle that.
It is a hurdle, and you just have to kind of keep working at it till you get them to understand what it is you can do for them. Mm-hmm. And then after you get them to agree, you got to go prove that you can do for them what you suggested to them you could do. So, I think the opportunity for growth in this is very great.
Good deal. So I want to back up just a little bit because you had obviously a long career prior to P3, been in a lot of different kind of financial roles. Did you kind of always know what you wanted to be when you were growing up, or because you've kind of, I feel like, gotten into the business development, relationship building type stuff, and you've got a natural.
The true answer to that question is I still don't know what I want to do.
That's completely.
I have my oldest friend in the world is a doctor, and he knew from when we were in grammar school that he wanted to be a doctor. And I just have never had the good fortune of knowing exactly. I just kind of gravitated to the fact that I like to be around people. And so business development of any kind is really, if you do well, it's because you tend to like to be around people and talk to people. And that's kind of why I gravitated that way, I suppose.
Yeah.
But honestly, I never really had an absolute career path or career or particular job that I wanted to do, but I feel fortunate it's worked out well for me. So
very cool. I think that's a common theme with people. It's certainly the same thing with me. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And like you said, it's not necessarily something you ever figured out. And I was always jealous of the people that were like, from age 10 or whatever, like, this is it. Yeah. This is what I was put on the earth to do. And I think I always knew I wanted to be in business, and that just because business in general fascinates me and still does. But I didn't know what business. And so one reason I was gravitated to the cost reduction industry was it was going to give me an opportunity to work with all different types of businesses, whether that's hospitals, manufacturers, restaurant groups, whatever. And therefore it kind of satisfies some of my, career ADD, if you will. So I think that's worked out well. And one of the things that I like, but okay, well, so you had a pretty lengthy career, and then 2019 you looked into this business and ended up joining up with us. So what was the catalyst, I guess, for jumping into business ownership for you?
Well, because my specific situation in the industry I was in, financial services, the change in that industry, and I do mean to say other industries are changing equally as much. So I'm not trying to say mine was different.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the changes within the financial services industry just I didn't agree with a lot of them. You know, the world changes and they don't listen to what you had to say. But
Sure.
I just felt like there wasn't a lot of opportunity relative to what I was accustomed to. So I just felt like it was time to look around. And I also didn't want to be in another situation where whoever is running the show can determine whether you have success or not have success. It's really needed to be about me making that success happen. And that's what I think being an owner is about. You're going to succeed through your efforts. Again, you need help along the way, and you certainly have a group of people at our company that help us try to do better. But it's ultimately going to be driven by your own energy and your own efforts. So I felt like at this stage in life, that was absolutely the better way to go for me.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm honestly not sure that anybody wants an old guy. When you look at corporations, it's like when you get in your 50s, they kind of, they'll take you or leave you. When you get in your 60s, they're trying to figure out how they can push you out the door. And I just didn't want that to be a problem. I want to build something that I can build and it'll be there even after I'm gone, for that matter.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think, I don't know what it is about corporate America, but they don't value the wisdom and experience probably like they should. It's kind of bizarre. I mean,
yeah, it's really correct. They, even when I was in my late 40s, you could see where they would prefer to hire someone in their late 20s, early 30s versus somebody that had been in the business 20 years plus that understood the nature of how it all worked.
Right.
It didn't really matter because what happens is as you get older, the management gets younger and they don't like to work with older people that might know more than them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that does make sense.
At least that was my experience. I'm sure everybody has their own experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the bigger the company, the more there's some really irrational politics in play. So,
in today's world, that is absolutely the case.
Yeah.
I don't think I could survive in the corporations. I was in sales management in Boston for a number of years, and I think they never could quite figure out that old Southern guy.
Yeah.
But I don't think they would let me even have a shot at it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. It's just my own kind of thought about it. But anyway.
Well, now you're over on the business ownership side. So carving your own path, making your own destiny, which, I think we have a common bond in the fact that once you kind of come over to the ownership side, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to imagine.
I lost you.
Oh, you did?
I lost.
All right, hold on. 1 second here. Am I back?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So we'll have to edit that out. I've just got some internet issues going on. So let me know if I cut out again. I've done a few of these and haven't cut out again. But I know what I was saying is that once you kind of come over to the business ownership side, it's really difficult to imagine going back to a job where you're taking marching orders from somebody else. So definitely a breath of fresh air for sure. All right. Well, I want to move into talking a little more specifically about your experience in this business and some things you learned or mistakes you made. And I know you've had a lot of relationships that you've built up over the years. And I'd like to just hear for a minute you share about what kind of gave you the most traction and results starting out.
Actually, I've kind of relied on contacts from the past to have the success I've had so far. I obviously don't feel like I've grown as much as I need to, want to, or should. But my biggest client I got because he was a former CEO and retired, and he was my next door neighbor. And I just called him. I said, "Let me tell you what I'm doing." And he put me on to the firm that we now work with. I just signed up a university here in Louisiana, and that was from an investment advisor friend that I had called on for 30 years. I called him one day. I said, let me tell you what I'm doing. Can you help suggest potential opportunities? And he gave me the university was the first one. Mm-hmm. He gave me a hospital, which has yet to happen, but I'm not going to quit. Unfortunately, the person he gave me to contact at the hospital has retired. And then when I was out due to my broken neck, I haven't rekindled that relationship to a point where I feel like I can make it happen now. Mm-hmm. But if you just don't give up, they don't know it yet, but they're going to do business with me. That's kind of that's the way I've always approached it, and we'll get there. But I primarily tried to build it through relationships, and I still think ultimately that's probably the best way for me. But we'll see. Sure. I mean, I can go cold call and knock on doors, and I've done plenty of that in my life. And I still do sometimes, but I don't know if that's going to be my primary way of building my business.
Sure.
I think it's going to be through relationships I already have.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think people probably underestimate the amount of relationships that they have in their network, and really leveraging that and getting referrals after you get a few clients is really the key, because it starts to spread out from there. So definitely agree with that. And so I guess let's hear a little more about, like, do you have any like pitfalls or mistakes that you've made that you've learned from starting out that you'd like to share?
When I read that question, I was thinking about it. I can't say there's anything particular. I think that the hardest part for me, I've always gotten a lot of my energy from just feeding off other people. I like to be around other people, and it helps me have that energy you need to go out and do what you're doing when you're trying to build a business. Mm-hmm. And I think the hardest part of this is being alone too much. I mean, I work here in my office at home, and I can pick up the phone and call, but I've always done better being in front of people. And again, that just takes energy. I liked being around, even though all the years I was in financial services, probably of the roughly 38 years, I spent 33 of them on the road. And even though I was by myself on the road, I spent the day calling on people. So I was in front of people all day long, every day. And, that's where I got my energy. Now, the appointments you get are kind of sporadic, and you don't get that regular input and energy that I get from clients. So the days that I have 2 or 3 appointments, I'd like to have more, certainly. But if I can get 2 or 3 in a day, it gives me more energy to go do more. Mm-hmm. And I think the hardest part for me is just being by myself. I just hadn't had to do that in 45 or 50 years, Yeah,
look, that's a very great point to bring up, because I think a lot of people that have worked in the corporate world or whatever job they've had, and then they come all of a sudden into owning your own business, you can feel like you're on an island. Obviously, we have employees and franchisees around the country, and we get together on group calls. And there's a little bit of team aspect like that. The annual convention we're putting together for this year. But otherwise, you're right. I mean, it's a lot of self-motivation. And if you're not prepared for it, it can be a shock. And it's like, obviously, you've got the tenacity to push through that. But for some people, it can be difficult.
I found it interesting. I, in essence, worked by myself when I was on the road those 33 years. But I don't know why it's harder now than it was to just get the energy to get the appointments. And then once you go get on your appointments, you kind of get energy from doing that. And that's something I have got to do a better job of. Because I do think, activity breeds more activity, and activity breeds success. Mm-hmm. And I know all that. and I understand it. I just have struggled to get that momentum, kind of like rolling down a rock down a hill. The more it goes, the faster it gets. And I still feel like I'm pushing a boulder to get it over the hump to roll down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably not unusual, really, for anyone trying to start from scratch building a business, right?
Not at all. I mean, that's what Chris and I talked earlier, and that's really just quintessential business ownership, entrepreneurship. I mean, you're working hard to build something that's going to start rolling down the hill, and it's a grind starting out for sure. And then as you get your first few clients, you get more referrals, and obviously, we got a network, we got support, but it's up to you to wake up at the ground running and find that motivation. And I think everybody has struggled with that. I know I have in the past, back when I was doing more outreach to clients. You can be really, especially when you've got a good service, right, that can help them. And then you get maybe a negative reaction, or somebody's like, leave me alone or whatever. It can be easy to have that be a major setback. And then simultaneously, you're able to help somebody or engage with somebody. It can be pretty exciting, and then it's easier to make phone calls. So I think what you're talking about, I think, is pretty common amongst everybody starting a business, and in this business, it's no different. So for me and the people I've talked to, or franchisees that I've helped over the years, it's just 90% of it is realizing that that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
and then just acknowledging it helps you push through those hard times.
Yeah, agree with that.
But yeah, it is particularly frustrating when you feel like you've got a service that's a no-brainer, and somebody's maybe pushing you off or not responding, or they just tell you to go pound sand, act like you've got leprosy or something. So that's where I think sharing those war stories amongst the network and the team with P3 kind of helps. And not that not like it's almost like a support network, if you will, of just sharing the wins and losses. But I appreciate that. I mean, that's certainly a difficulty that we all face. So I want to hear, you mentioned it, and I really love the mentality you're talking about. They're going to be a client, they just don't know it yet. I think that that says a lot about your personality and your tenacity. And I think that mentality has to exist to be successful in any business. You really just got to commit and mentally know that, you're going to put forth the effort to have it be successful, and the rest is just kind of a foregone conclusion. And I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts a little more about on that perspective on tenacity, on just following up and sticking with it. Anything about that?
You know what? It's always been kind of part of how I operate, I guess. And I'll give you a childhood story, which I don't know if you want it, but it kind of explains. It's the way I've really approached sales my whole life. When I was about 10, I think, give or take, played Little League, which a lot, I'm sure you did. Most people did. They, had to raise money for the Little League to help them operate and so forth. So every year they do the barbecue chicken dinner. So they gave everybody tickets, go sell your barbecue chicken dinner tickets to raise money for the Little League. And I went out and I just started selling tickets, and I kept knocking doors and knocking doors and knocking doors. I had no idea how I ranked in terms of I think first place was a glove, second place was a bat, third place was a ball, something like that. And I just kept selling because I didn't have any way. Today you can pick up your phone and you can track everything. But way back then, of course, you didn't have that. So I just kept selling. I didn't stop. I didn't know where I ranked. I didn't know if I was far ahead or way behind. So I just kept selling. So when the day came at the ballpark, I think it was maybe before in the middle of the game or something, they announced the winners of the barbecue chicken dinner sales. And I finished first.
Nice.
And I won my new glove, which I probably still have somewhere in an attic somewhere. Because that was 50 years ago, close to it. What it taught me was you just don't ever stop. You just keep going and keep going and keep going. And you know what? And I used to tell people when I was sales manager, I said, when you're working every day, if somebody cancels a meeting, what do? A lot of people just quit and go home and said, okay, that's my day. I didn't think that was the right attitude. I think the attitude is if somebody canceled, then I'm going to go see somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to work from when I start my day to the end of the day, which might end at 5 or 6 o'clock, or it could be 9 or 10 o'clock because I took people to dinner a lot of times. I think the way that you succeed is you get into a routine that works for you and you do it every day, all day. That's the best way to succeed. And, that's really what I'm trying to do here is get into a groove that I haven't yet gotten into. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to keep harping about my accident. To be honest with you, though, it's been just over a year, and I'm just now feeling like I'm starting to mentally be able to do what I'm accustomed to do in my whole career. Mm-hmm. But my old little league sales story it's stuck with me my entire life, and I've always approached things that way. And I don't quit. I don't really. Some people are motivated by goals, so when they hit the goal, they stop. Mm-hmm. I've never been motivated by goals. I just go until I can't go anymore. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you're going to grow whatever it is you're trying to grow. And it works. Absolutely. And I tried to convey that and ingrain that in people that I've associated with over the years, especially in my sales management role. And most of those guys didn't like it. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to hear what I had to say, right. But they had to because I was their boss. But I just think if you get out and go see people, it's like I said just a few minutes ago, activity breeds activity and activity breeds positive results. So if you see as many people you can see every day, ask them to do business with you, you're going to be successful. Mm-hmm. It's just not that's really what your job is. It's asking people to do business with you. And the more people you ask, the better chance you're going to have of being successful. In fact, I think you can't fail if you keep asking people to do business with you, right? You can't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's impossible. But I don't know. I guess it's good to talk about it because I hadn't really talked about that anymore. But that's really the ultimate motivator.
Love it. Yeah.
Some people need goals. I didn't really understand how people. And still, you're still learning. But I had people that if I didn't give them a goal, they couldn't function. They had to have a goal. And I'm thinking, well, you don't need a goal. Just go work.
Right.
Just go talk to people and ask them to do business. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
But now they need the goals along the way to keep them motivated. So I certainly learned a lot when I was in that role about people and how they work, and what causes them to work. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah,
we don't have time today to get into depth about it, but it's really interesting how people are.
No, you're right. That's fascinating. I never honestly thought of it that way. I've never really been in kind of the sales manager role like you have, and you're right. It's really just about like, what do I need to do and just go do it. I think people can overcomplicate it, right? You can think about 13 things that you need to have lined up before you actually just go do the thing you need to do, whether that be goals or business cards or just something. Like it's easy to make things like that be in your way when it's just like, just go talk to people, keep it simple. And
it really is that simple, but
I like it. And I think the Little League example is great. I think I think people might underestimate, how impactful that stuff is on a kid. Being able to,
my whole life has been driven by just keep knocking on the next door and asking them to buy your chicken dinner.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny.
True.
Yeah. And that reminded me, I was in Boy Scouts back in the day, and we had
I as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, then you probably remember the candy bar sales. I assume they had that when you're in Boy Scouts. When I was there, it was like you'd go sell these like candy bars. You know, the Girl Scouts have the Thin Mint cookies or whatever. Which
was it the world's finest chocolate? Was that the candy bar you sold? Or was it different?
I don't know. I think it was just like a Boy Scout brand, but they were really good. They had like almond chocolate, and we'd go door to door just selling boxes of them.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you're a kid, you've got a little bit of an advantage as far as people telling you no, but it was still a great experience. You know, whether or not people get into business development or you know, they're an actuary at a life insurance company or something, like ultimately you're still doing sales, you're selling yourself, you're doing interviews, you're moving the company forward. So I think it's a valuable experience to learn as a kid. So it's really cool to hear that had you know, the impact that it did.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, very cool. Well, yeah, I think, you know, you touched on, obviously, I know you had the injury, you know, congrats on getting as far as you had, because that was obviously a pretty crazy freak accident. So
the fact that I'm even sitting here is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you've come a long way. I mean, honestly, you seem 110% to me. So nice work. I'm sure that was not the easiest road to recovery. And, you know, in a lot of ways, maybe the timing was good because now that we're kind of coming out of COVID, and I think actually today they just announced, the CDC did, that you no longer have to quarantine if you get COVID. They're just basically treating it like
mask. Did they get rid of the mask?
So it's now officially the common cold, which, you know, whatever, new variant. Either way, great news for the business development world and just getting back to normal. So I think your recovery is timed well with hopefully getting more face-to-face time and that sort of stuff.
Right.
And, you know, I know you're early on and you've got a long way to go. Obviously, you've landed a really big multi-billion-dollar company. We were under NDA, so we can't name names or anything, but continuing to sell them more services. We're excited to watch that account grow for you, as well as these universities and stuff. But just kind of leading into, I guess, you know, how has owning your own business changed you? I mean, I know it's only been a few years, well, I guess a couple of years, but anyway, just curious, like a little bit more about how that's changed you when you made the decision to jump into it.
Yeah, I you know, honestly, I read that and thought about it, Aaron. I really, I would say at this point, it hasn't necessarily changed me. What I'm trying to get back to is my intensity of focus of doing the things we just talked about over and over again. So it becomes a habit. And it's been hard to get that more mental energy than anything to get back into that kind of groove. And that's kind of where I am. It's slowly coming. Every little success kind of gives you a little bit more energy, and I'm just trying to get there. But I don't. That's not an answer, but it is the answer.
Yeah, no worries, man. I mean, look, you're new to it, and I think, like you said, it does take time, especially when you're dealing with the setback that you had and the environment.
You know, I thought I should have gotten going sooner. I mean, the fact that I could get up and about after a couple of months is great. But about 12 years ago, I was in Nashville working, and I came out of a hotel, and it was wet and rainy and slick, and I hit this pavement outside of the hotel. My feet went straight up in the air, and I fell straight down on my shoulder. And I said, "Oh gosh, I ripped a rotator cuff or something." And I didn't. I just strained it. But when I went to the PT, she said, it will take you a year before you can move your arm like you used to. I said, okay. It was almost a year to the day that she was dead on right. And then when I was thinking about my much more substantial injury with my neck, I went, I should have no expectation that I would be able to do all that I used to do in a year. It's just not realistic. And so, but it took this happening for me to understand when you have injuries, they just take time. And when you get older, they take more time. But anyway, it's been fun. It's been good. I'm very appreciative and thankful that I'm even here right now talking to you. And I really feel like every day and week I get a little bit farther along of what I need to be, and I'm certainly determined that I will get there. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'll see that in the volume and amount of work that I'm able to bring in the door.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's been hard, but it's coming.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, look, you're a high energy guy, and everybody enjoys talking to you and working with you. So we can see how you enjoy being around people, and you really hit the ground running. You got a few deals, that one giant one when you started, and we're excited to see Kirk getting back into full swing again.
I'm hoping it comes. It's coming, I should say. Yeah. I'm not there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah. All right. Well, just a couple more questions, and then we can kind of wrap it up here. But again, like I know you're new to owning a business and being in business for yourself, but that doesn't mean you don't have something that you could share. I'm curious, do you have any thoughts or advice for somebody considering taking the leap into business ownership versus, working for somebody else?
Well, I mean, if you're going to do your own thing, probably a franchise for most people is the best way to go. But I find a lot of franchises, I didn't like the structure of how they work. I do like our structure. You pay your money as you would anywhere, but basically then you go do the work and you get paid for your work. And I like that. I mean, I almost went to work for a sales training group, which would have fit what I've done in the past. But, you had to pay them a big upfront, and then they were going to take a monthly fee no matter what. And if I had done that with COVID, I think I'd have been bankrupt before I could have made enough money. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't structured the right way. So I think what we do, the way we're doing it, is the way to do it. And I think everybody can win. And you don't want to create a hurdle so big on people that it tends to discourage their ability to go out and do what they need to do. And because if I do better, you do better, everybody in the company does better. So sure. To support not just me, but obviously any franchisee is what needs to be done. Because we all, if any franchisee wins, everybody wins. 100%, right?
100%. Yeah. So
that's just kind of the way I look at the whole thing. And so I think if somebody is interested, they're willing to work, have an amount of money that's not a ridiculous amount of money, then they should get in and give it a try. Yeah. And I think it won't, given time, it won't be that hard to be successful in this industry with the way we're built.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the cool things about our model and the industry is that, look, we're not, unless we help the client save money, we're not making money. Okay.
Right.
And then obviously everybody makes money as a result of that. And for me, I remember my dad would always tell me when I was young, and he was spot on, and it's really stuck with me, is that the people bringing in the business are always going to make the most money, and they should always make the most money. And so that's the way we've set it up. The franchisee is going to earn the lion's share of the take home on every deal. And I think that's the way it should be, because, business development is the hardest part. Without new deals for any company in the world, you're dead on, you're dead on arrival. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, really, okay. Well, I appreciate it. We got one more question here. I'm just curious if you've had any books that you might recommend, anything that you've learned along the way.
I thought about that when I saw the question, and I was thinking, I've read different business books. In fact, I've got some on the shelf that I bought that I haven't read. One that has probably helped me more than anyone is one that The name of the book is called Selling the Way Your Customer Buys, BUYS. It's not in print anymore, but I still think you can get it. You might be able to find it on Amazon in the used books section. But it's written by Marvin Sadowski, SADOVSKY, Marvin Sadowski. Back when I was working Texas, I had a call with an investment advisor in Sherman, Texas, which is right on the border of Oklahoma, north of Dallas, about an hour and a half. And I'm talking to this investment advisor about our funds and all the stuff that you do, right, in a sales call. And toward the end, she said, "You know what? You should take NLP." I said, "Okay, what's that?" She said, "Neuro-linguistic programming." I said, "Okay, what's that?" She said, "Well, I started taking it from Dr. Sadowski years ago, and I've done it so much that I've actually become a trainer in the science, or the whatever you want to call NLP." And I said, "Okay, he's in Dallas. I'll give him a call." She gave me his number, and I'm driving back to Dallas late that afternoon, and I called him. And I said, "I heard that your service and what you provide really helps people." I said, "I'd like to take your class." He said, "Well, I don't do open classes anymore. I only do them for companies that bring their people." And I said, "Well, I can't get my company, because I'm just a sales guy. I can't get them to do a class." I said, "Can I come sit in the back of one of your classes and learn?" He said, "Nope, we can't do that." I said, "I'll hide in the closet just so I can listen and learn." He said, "No, I can't do that." I said, "Okay." So about a year later, roughly, maybe a year and a half, was when I left Putnam and went to Fidelity, and I was the national sales manager running the bank channel. And so one of the first things, because I had authority to be involved in training and what we were going to do, I called Marvin up, Dr. Sadowski, and I said, "We want to bring people and we want to do the training." So we went to Dallas. I took my whole sales group. We went for 2 days, and he taught. It takes longer than 2 days to learn all this stuff, but it's behavioral psychology is what it is. Aaron, is the most powerful thing. You can't even imagine how you can understand how to deal with people. And so I did that. And then when I left Fidelity and went to another firm as national sales manager, we went back again to Dallas to see him again. And I took the whole new set of salespeople I had, because I think it's probably the best way to teach people how to understand, because people don't understand. They think they read people and they don't know what they're reading, and they miss. It's like, I sit like this a lot, and people think that's like I'm trying to block you, or what I'm saying. Psychologically, it doesn't mean that at all. What it means is I'm comfortable putting my arms like this, and I like to sit like this sometimes. Sure. That's all it means. Right. There's nothing more to it than that. But people teach people that's bad. You're telling people you don't want to interact or talk to them. I said, "No, that's not true." And it's not true. Mm-hmm. And so there's just the book has it in there. It's almost better to have the book and to get training, because it's really, really powerful. Part of my recuperation is I go to PT still, and I also go to the stretch zone. Do y'all have stretch zones in Arkansas?
I don't think so. No,
they started in Fort Lauderdale, but they're all over the East Coast, and we have a number of them around where I live here in South Louisiana, because Drew Brees used to use the stretch zone. I think that's part of the reason why he played football as long as he did, right? So I got this guy that I go to at the stretch zone, and about 2 weeks ago, I was in there, and he's talking about his girlfriend, and they've been together for a year or so, and they're probably going to get married, but they have issues. And so I'm listening to his story, and he said Well, I said, let me ask you something. The guy that was stretching me, his name's Jordan. Jordan's a visual guy. And visual people like you to look at them, right? Have you ever been talking to someone, they're not looking at you, they look like they're looking off?
Mm-hmm.
The chances are very, very great that person's auditory. And an auditory person can't look you in the eye and absorb what you're saying to them, right? So Marvin was teaching us this, and I'm going, okay, I kind of get it. Well, we went on break one of the days we were in training. We were on a break. We're all standing out in the hall or going to the bathroom, whatever, before we went back in the classroom. And there were 5 of us. There were 3 guys in front of me, and then this guy to my left. And everybody's just talking, just casual talk as you're standing out in the hallway on your break. But the guy next to me, his name was Roger. And Roger's looking off like in La La Land.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, what the hell's wrong with Roger? We're just having a casual conversation. Why is he acting like he's in another world? And about that time, they rang the bell to come back to class. And for some reason, in that instant, it hit me in the head like a brick. And I realized that Roger's auditory in how he processes. Mm-hmm. So I turned to Roger. I said, Roger, I just figured out you're really auditory. He said, Kirk, I am real auditory. He said, when I had spoken to a person that's visual, that visual people like to look me in the eye, right? If you don't look me in the eye, you're not telling the truth. That could be true, but it's probably not true. So right. Roger said, when I look a visual person in the eye, when they start talking, I automatically slightly turn my head so I can hear what they're saying. That's how I process, right? Mm-hmm. He said, Kirk, so the visual person, again, this is all happening internally, is basically they're getting in a turmoil because the person quit looking at them. So what do? They move around. So now they're in alignment. The visual person's happy again, and they start talking. What does Roger do? He turns his head again. He said, I have literally gone in a 360-degree circle talking to a visual person.
That's really funny.
How powerful is it to know that, though?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you go from thinking these guys.
Have you ever had a meeting where you just felt like they weren't paying attention to
100%. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right?
Which, I mean, to be fair, they might actually have not been paying attention to me, but yeah, you're right.
It's possible they weren't, but it's very probable that they were auditory. Mm-hmm. And if I stop an auditory person at your door when they're leaving, and I said, what did Aaron just, and again, they're auditory, you're visual. If I stop them at your door and say, what did Aaron just say? They go, I don't know. Because they don't. They did. If they had to look at you the whole time, they didn't process anything you said, and they walk out the door, and that meeting was for nothing.
Wow.
Okay. So back to the story about the guy at the stretch zone. Well, he's visual. His girlfriend, I said, it sounds like she might be auditory. I said, do this the next time you talk to her. If she doesn't look at you, just disregard it to the extent that you can, because visual people go nuts if you're not looking at them. But I said, just listen to her. And he came back the next time. I go once a week now. And the next time I was there, I said, well, what happened with your girlfriend? He said, you're right. He said, everything's better now because I listened to her instead of needing to look at her. Right.
Yeah.
Aaron, I can't tell you how powerful it is. My wife, I'm going to give you one other story. I'm going to shut up. My wife is really visual. Mm-hmm. So this is back in an old house we had. And I had my big study downstairs. And when you walk in, it's kind of like a little platform. You go down the stairs to my study. And I'm down there and I'm working. It was on a Friday because I traveled the rest of the week. And I'd come home and try to catch up on stuff on Friday. So she comes in and she says, hey, I did such and such in the backyard. I want you to see it. I said, I understand, but I'm busy right now. Can you just tell me about it and I'll go look at it later? She goes, no, you got to see it. because I'm more auditory and she's visual.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, but I'm really busy. Let me finish this and then I'll come look at it. No, I need for you to come see it. And at that moment, I realized what was going on with communication. She needed me to see what she did. I needed just her to tell me what it did so I can say, okay, great, and let me keep working. So I said, you know what? I put my pen down. I got up. I walked with her. We went to the backyard. She showed me what she did. She was satisfied and happy, and I went back in and got my work done. I can't tell you how powerful it is to understand. I knew what was going on, and if I hadn't, I'd have just been pissed off because she was bugging me, right? The reality was she needed to show me, that's a visual word, show me what she had done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to go on. I get cranked up on this stuff.
This is great.
It's powerful, and you make assumptions about people that you're working with, they're talking to, or calling on, and you make assumptions that they're thinking something that's not even close to what's true.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, selling the way your customer buys is what that book's about, and it is really powerful. I think you can still find it, but I know it's out of print. But I think they do have used copies, like on Amazon or whatever.
That's cool. Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
So you asked me that one question. You got way long.
No, this is great. I mean, look, you
way more than what you wanted. I can't even tell you. I got so many stories I could go on and on about this stuff because it's really, really powerful. Well, and obviously, you can tell I'm enthusiastic about it because I love to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of thing, to me, teach something that people can use. It's not really about sales. It's about how you interact with people. Mm-hmm. After I do lunch meetings when I was on the road, I was in a Merrill office. I did my regular lunch mutual fund pitch. And when I got done, I said, if anybody's interested, I can give you some things that might help you interact with your clients. You know, some people stay, some people leave. It didn't matter to me. And so I went through a longer version of what I just told you. And then one of the ladies who was an advisor at Merrill, after we finished, she came up. She said, now that explains to me why my son does what he does. She said, I'm always telling him to look me in the eye, and he won't look me in the eye. But he can be in the other room, and I can tell him what I want him to do. He'll say, okay, Mom, and he'll go do it.
Yeah.
So your son's auditory. He doesn't need to look you in the eye. In fact, you'll get more from him if he doesn't look you in the eye. You just tell him what you need. Yep. It's so friggin' powerful. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, I'll shut up.
No, Kirk, this is great.
You asked me about the book. That's the book, and it's really, really a powerful book.
I think the fact that you're so passionate about it, I think is indicative of how powerful it is, because you've obviously had a great family career, a grandpa, and a great sales career. So there's a lot to learn there. So we'll definitely try to find that, maybe put a link to that book in the show notes. So, Mike, Kirk, really appreciate you coming on this podcast today. It's been fantastic talking to you, learning more about you professionally and personally. And you had some really, really cool insight, experience, and wisdom to share. So really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And we'll be in touch, and have a great weekend.
Good. Thank you very much, Aaron. Looking forward to our future together.
Very good. All right. Well, have a good one, Kirk. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Cool. All right, man. Well, hey, you did fantastic. I know you said you were, just gonna get to the point, but I love the stories you told and you elaborated, and that was, you had me concerned. I thought you were going to be kind of like short and dry, but you were typical Kirk and personable. So I was like, that was great. So I'll send it over to the company that we got doing this, and then there might be a few things we edit or whatever. Yeah. But
you can edit all you want. You can edit all of it.
No.
That's your call.
That was some good stuff. So I'll let you know when we get the deliverable ready, and then there should be some snippets in there that whether the whole thing or some snippets in there that you can use to help hopefully communicate with your prospects and drive your business forward and expand the Kirk Williamson brand.
Yeah. Good. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it, man.
Have a good weekend.
You too. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the Enterprise Builders Podcast. See you again next time, and make sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.